I'm Caitlin, and welcome to the Lit Review. Today I'm going to be airing all of my literary dirty laundry, or at least a portion of it, because I suspect it's going to be a multi-part series. But I'm going to be talking to you about my young adult series that I'm stuck in the middle of, so all my unfinished series. And I decided to break it up into young adult and adult titles because when I was looking at my overall list, it was embarrassingly large. So we're gonna break it up. And for the purpose of defining what I mean here, these are all series that I am actively reading. So I am discounting all the ones that I just have no interest in continuing. I am also not counting book series that I have read all of the published works, but there are still some that have not been published yet. So I'm not counting those as being unfinished because I am not currently able to finish them. So yeah, young adult series that I have not finished and would like to. So let's get into it. Alright, so none of these are in a particular order or hierarchy, but I would love to hear from you in the comments down below if you think there's a specific series or a couple of series that you think I should get off my butt and read. Please let me know in the comments down below and I will try to prioritize those for you. And because if you're really excited, I want to know. I want to be a part of that excitement. It's going to be kind of embarrassing because I'm really bad at reading series sequentially. I don't just pick up book one in the series and I'm like, gotta read book two. That's just not my way. I want to read something else and go experience something else. And then I do want to come back and finish the series, but I just really don't feel the compulsion to read it in order, in my reading order. You know, I don't need to go book one, book two, book three, book four, which is how I get myself into this conundrum that I'm currently experiencing. So the ones I'm going to start with are the ones that I have had out from my library when I could last physically go to a library. And that first one is part of the Red Queen series from Victoria Aveyard, and that is, I have currently in my possession King's Cage, so I've read all the ones up to this. I have not read this one yet. This is a series that if I were rating the whole series, I would definitely be giving it a 3-star rating because I enjoy it, but I'm not obsessed with it. It's not a life-defining series for me, which is part of why I'm not prioritizing it super heavily in terms of getting the whole thing read. It's an interesting series that follows the misadventures of Mare Barrow, who is living in a blood-oriented caste system in a fantasy world where if you have red blood, you are considered of the lower caste of basically the peasants and the workforce, whereas silvers are people who are nobility or high merchants or royalty. And so she has power, and also the people who are silvers have powers. And Mari has powers of the silver caste, but is herself red-blooded. So the whole drama of the overall series is what that means for the society. And pushing up against really authoritarian royals. But there's also, of course, romance with a silver prince and all of that good stuff. So I am at King's Cage and I'm stuck here. So the one I have out from the library and is the last book of the series. So I'm very close to being able to finish it. But again, I've just kind of dallied. Overall is part of the Raven cycle. So I have and have not yet read The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. So I know this is a very beloved series here on BookTube and in the book community overall. I have read up to this book but haven't finished it. And again, I've had this in my possession for months and haven't read it. I enjoy the Raven cycle, but it is not a huge motivation for me to finish. So Blue is the daughter of a psychic and a family that overall has some kind of some level of powers, and Blue's powers aren't really that special to her. She's really just there to enhance other people's psychic ability. But the most interesting and weird part of her life is that she's been told that she's going to kill her true love by kissing them. And she gets really caught up in this group of boys from the nearby private school that she calls the Raven Boys, and they themselves are on this quest to find a long dead mythical Welsh king that they believe to be buried somewhere in their nearby landscape. So the whole Raven cycle is really about them trying to fulfill this quest, and the danger continues to escalate across all of them, and more like mystical or weird happenings progress with each book. So I am looking forward to reading the Raven King, and potentially even reading the spin-off series that follows Ronan, because he is one of my favorite characters within this. But I haven't finished the Raven cycle. I'm not really sure why. And so this one I'm like kind of embarrassed by for my own little self, because I am such a forward Sarah J. Maas stan. And I really love Crescent City or House of Earth and Blood. I really love the entire ACOTAR series, and I do love what I have read of Throne of Glass. But Throne of Glass is I have technically left unfinished. This is the first book in the series, and the series for which the whole thing is named after. But I got like 3 books in and then just kind of got invested elsewhere. So even though I really like Selena Sardothian as a character, and I'm really interested in both Maas's writing and like where this whole thing goes, I have not finished this series. And this feels really weird. This feels like a big oversight for me. So I'm hoping to be able to read everything again and actually finish the whole thing. Although I do think in general, even people who are like really big Sarah J. Maas readers think that this series is perhaps like not as polished because this is her first book. But I still really love her writing and her just overall craft, so I'm definitely going to continue this. I just don't know when. Next, I have something that I have the second book back here, but the first book is Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian, and so I believe this is going to be a trilogy when it's done, and I don't know if the third one is out yet. But I really enjoyed reading Ash Princess, and kind of got sucked in by the world, and it follows Theodosia, who is kind of a captive princess, held captive so the rest of her people kind of fall in line, and she's being held up as like a symbol, so she has to wear this ash crown whenever she's out in public, and it just like completely crumbles around her, and so it's like this really big metaphorical symbol. I thought this was really interesting. I would really like to read the other 2 books in this series, but I have no idea when it's going to happen. And so this one is also going to be pretty familiar to you because it is a book series that is also on my July TBR, but I have only read the first book in Jenny Han's To All the Boys I Loved Before little trilogy. So I've read this one. And I have the second book, P.S. I Still Love You, on my July TBR. So I am in the process of reading this, but this series has been out for quite some time, and I've only kind of sort of made progress on it. It's a really cute series. Lara Jean has written all these love letters to people that she had feelings for but never shared her feelings or expressed her feelings to. And her little sister sends them out. Sends them out because she was just trying to help, essentially. And so all these boys now know how she feels about them. And this is how she ends up in kind of a fake dating situation in book 1 with Peter Kavinsky, who the most popular boy in school. But so the series really kind of follows their relationship and her coming into her own within her family, but also with, with herself as well, and the different romances she has along the way. I really enjoyed it. It's very fun, flirty writing, like very much a charming YA contemporary. And again, I would really like to finish this. I just haven't yet. I have also neglected the Arc of the Scythe series by Neil Shusterman, which is incredibly hyped here on BookTube. And so I've read the first book, Scythe, but I have yet to read Thunderhead, or The Toll, which is also back here. So I really enjoyed the first book. I think I may have even given it 5 stars. So you would think with such a high rating that I would immediately jump to the second one. No, again, my weird neuroses is that I just don't finish these things, and I don't know what that's about. So this is the second book in the Arc of the Scythe trilogy, and I would really like to know what happens with these characters. You meet them for the first time in the first book, duh. Citra and Rowan are both selected to be in training to be scythes, which in this world, it's been basically a world that has conquered any form of illness, like anything from homelessness to disease to long life. And so you can just kind of keep becoming young again. And the only way people truly die is through the scythe, which is a very difficult word for me to say, but it's how they kind of keep population in control. Citra and Rowan are both taken into kind of like an apprenticeship, and they are both aware that only one of them can become the scythe. It's a really interesting premise and a really cool execution, at least in the first novel, so I would like to read this. I just, again, haven't bothered to pick up the second book in the series. And then the last, it's not even remotely the last, dear God, I have other things. These next two I don't have physically with me, but I will put their covers up on the screen. And I have never finished Cassandra Clare's The Mortal Instruments series. And this is a series that just gets like a ton of love. Like, people are still invested in Cassandra Clare's writing. So I think it's interesting that it started out as fan fiction and then became this like whole elaborate world that is so entirely its own that it's almost like divorced from that original starting point. Which is super cool to see somebody's creativity continue to grow and evolve in that way. I got through, I think, the first 3 books, and I have not continued with them. Not because I'm not interested. I would still like to read these, but I was reading them through my library, and I really wanted to read them in physical form, so I haven't like checked them out during self-isolation and quarantine. But I like them. I just don't. Again, it's like I'm not super compelled to finish it in a timely manner. The other one that I haven't continued with, I've only read the first in the series, is the Horison. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but it's by Garth Nix, and that is a trilogy that like a lot of people read when they were growing up, and I just never fully read that as a youngin'. So I'm trying to read it as an adult, and it's really cool. It's a really cool fantasy series that has basically, it's almost divided between like borderline medieval, old-fashioned magical space versus like high-tech, and there's a wall that divides them. And one of the few people that can successfully like go between these worlds are necromancers who have to deal with like demons and things like that. So again, necromancers is a thing that I just really freaking love. Dealing with demons is another like trope or thing that I really enjoy. So like I would very much like to continue on with the series, but because I was mostly like doing holds through the library, it just like I fell off the wagon with this, but I would like to continue reading about this. And then another one that I have been checking out from the library and that I would very much like to finish, I think it's a trilogy, and that is Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion. So you may have seen the filmic adaptation of the first book in that series, which shares the title Warm Bodies. I have read 2 of, I think, the 3 books that are out, so I really am very close to finishing this series. But it follows, it's a zombie redo of like Romeo and Juliet in a way. You're mostly in the perspective of R, who is a semi-sentient zombie. Like, he does feel the compulsion to eat brains, but he also like has some memories and like has some quirks that make him different from other members of the undead. And he ends up falling for this young woman who is like basically out on a survivalist run for her maid city that's in like an old stadium. And so they are really living an abysmal life as survivors of this plague that nobody entirely knows where it came from. And then the series is about like their relationship, but also like R's journey back to mortality or consciousness. And like, it's really interesting and really poetically written. And it's probably a series that I could eventually see myself buying one day, but I also like really want to finish the dang thing to see how I feel about it before I make that purchase. And another one that I probably will be purchasing, because I loved the first book so much in this series, and I never read it again as a kid. I never read it, but I've been loving it even as an adult, and that is His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. So I read The Golden Compass for the first time at the beginning of the year, I think in like February, and it was so amazing, and I really loved it, and cannot wait to read The Subtle Knife. But again, I think when I can buy books again, because I don't buy books courtesy of Litland, but I think when I can buy books again, I am definitely going to be purchasing the His Dark Materials trilogy. I've heard mixed reviews about like the later books or the like secondary spin-off trilogy, but I really loved The Golden Compass and would very much like to watch the TV show. So this is one that I think of all the things I've mentioned, that's probably one of the ones that I have higher motivation to complete. But yeah, His Dark Materials is another YA series that I'm just stuck in the middle of. I also have the Wrath in the Dawn, which I believe is a duology by Renee Audier, on my list of things that I'm stuck in the middle of. So I really loved The Wrath in the Dawn. I've done like a whole separate review on this channel about it, and I would really like to read the next book, which is The Rose and the Dagger. So I intend on purchasing both because I just really liked that series to begin with. And yeah, I have no excuses. I just haven't done it yet. But The Wrath in the Dawn basically is a 1001 Nights retelling, which is really interesting and a really compelling fantasy space, and the way it diverges from the original story and creates so much empathy and lush characters and class diversions is just like really well done, and it's one of my favorite books of the year probably, so like I'm very excited to read The Rose and the Dagger. And then the last YA series that I am stuck in the middle of is the Three Dark Crowns series. So I have, I think, the 2 books that I have read, which are One Dark Throne and Three Dark Crowns. So I own the rest of these. I don't even have the excuse of not owning the rest of these books. I have them all. I just haven't finished them. And this is a series by Kendare Blake, who has also done some other series. Like, for example, I have read Anna Dressed in Blood, but I did not include that as a series I'm in the middle of because I don't want to read the second one in that one. The first one was sufficient for me as a reader. But I do want to finish the rest of the Three Dark Crown series, even though I've heard some kind of mixed things about the fact that it was originally a trilogy and I think got expanded into 5 books. But I really enjoy the fantasy world building. So Fenburn is this kind of mystical island that has always like really flourished and had power, in large part because of the way that its royal line has lived and distributed power. So like people have different gifts throughout this community with different strengths, and into each generation basically triplets are born, female triplets, and each of them will be born with different powers that are represented within the different groups of the island, and they basically have to kill each other. Like, there can only be one queen, and it is through the like quest for victory and the loss of life of these other royals that like the island is said to flourish and succeed. But the sisters of this generation are like deeply unhappy with that, or at least a couple of them are, and so it's really, you're in almost everybody's head, and so there's a lot of like coming of age, there's a lot of like lost love or mysterious circumstances. It's just a really interesting series that I would very much like to continue on with. These are all my unfinished YA series. Please let me know down in the comments below what you think I should try to finish or how I should prioritize my series reads. Stay tuned, because in the coming weeks I will try to do this again with all of my adult series, and we'll see what happens there, and you can hopefully give me some advice there as well. However, thank you for spending the time with me. I hope you have a fantastic reading day. Like and subscribe if you'd like to know more about me or this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!